Hello, everyone. Today we have Lara Mare, who is in South Africa, a recovering bank woman and leader, and a recovering management consultant who actually completely shifted her purpose and life, I believe. So, Lara, welcome to the CEO World Record.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having us.
Lara, why you do what you do now? And what were the events in like back in your life that made you take those like really brave decisions?
Yeah, so I don't know if they were so brave, but I think there were quite a few events that led up to it. I've always just been passionate about health and wellness, and just also about improvement, be it in business, be it personally, be it at a community and country level, and just realizing that actually inherently people are enough. We've got all we need already, but so much that gets pumped into our minds and our bodies through the food system, just through media, is actually destroying us at a health level, mentally and physically. And especially in Africa, where you understand there's this double burden of disease, where people are obese, but actually malnourished. So they're not getting the right nutrition. And I came across when my son was born, we were in the UK. And when we were weaning him, there were these amazing free from nutrition solutions for children. And I just understood then the importance, after studying quite rigorously with my mom cap on, the importance of nutrition, even preconception, when you look at growing healthy bodies and minds. And I saw these wonderful nutrition solutions for weaning children, but I realized so many parents wanted these solutions for their families in a snack format, in a convenient format, in a functional beverage format, where it was convenient and really good for children and their families. And that was basically the inspiration for Rush Nutrition. My son at the time had been grown up, and he had been diagnosed with ADHD. And I realized then too that there were certain foods that would trigger his symptoms, but it was so difficult to find convenient snack options for his lunchbox, for just snacks at home. And so that also fed into this whole decision to develop Rush Nutrition. I think also I realized, growing up on a farm in South Africa, the massive risk farmers take in bringing product to market. And what we were seeing there is farmers are farmers. They're not marketers. So they needed someone to actually take their produce and give it access to market. And so that's really, especially our pomegranate juices and a lot of our freshly made bars and snacks are obviously sourced locally from our farming communities. I also realized that if we want to make a difference in this country, South Africa has a massive unemployment rate, and agri-processing, which is the industry we fall within, has the largest jobs multiplier. So you can really make an impact in communities by and further than just our manufacturing, in the farming communities, in the communities that process our fruits and the vegetables that we use, and the seeds and the nuts and all that good stuff that we use in our products. I think how we differentiate ourselves quite a bit is that we play in the African functional, botanical, and superfood space. So we use novel ingredients like rooibos, which is high in antioxidants, baobab, which is high in calcium, moringa, which has an amazing just overall nutritional profile. And we really are trying to just change the landscape around food, whilst taking out all the bad things like the refined sugars, the preservatives, the chemicals, everything you need a PhD in chemistry to read on the label. So yeah, that is a little bit of the inspiration, and then what we're doing currently. I think it has just been a journey, especially in South Africa, where it is quite a niche product. So how do you make it more accessible to more people, where the real burden of health resides? So that's what we're working on quite aggressively going forward.
This is, I always find it so fascinating. Then we as humans, we are triggered in personal life with certain challenges, and then we see
Yes.
that gap, and then we fulfill that. So that's just really amazing that you
Yes.
made that turn. And Lara, I wonder, like from my personal, literally experience, because I have a son, and I know that
Yes.
many listeners they have as well kids and etc. Have you? Have you noticed some type of maybe shift, within yourself when you move to eating, better food,
Mm,
and your, kid, and what changed? How did that,
mm,
move changed maybe you and the tension and whatever health?
mm,
Um,
mm. Yeah, it's such a good question. So, I've studied a fellowship in integrated medicine, and it's been fascinating just to understand how connected your gut is to your brain. It's they're now calling it your second brain, right? And so you can imagine if you are pumping it full of things that are actually making it lethargic, making it not work properly, making it not be able to detox yourself, that it really is having a huge impact on minds, not just ADHD, on anxiety, on depression, on all sorts of really topical topical topics, should I say, at this point. What I found crazy was during COVID, for example, we had quite a challenge to get our products out into retail because the local retailers focused on what they call their KVIs, their known value items.
mm,
And ironically, those were oil, sugar, and flour. Everything that really, when you understand, drives disease and drives inflammation in the body. And so, I mean, you will also talk to people in South Africa. We were stockpiling breads, pastas, those are things that actually just inflame your body. And there are a lot of people that are battling with autoimmune conditions post the pandemic. So I think there's so much more than we actually realize that goes into what food's able to do in your body. Personally, myself, I have seen it. I mean, I don't have refined sugars in my diet. Um, Caffeine is a problem. I do enjoy a coffee in the morning, but it's being mindful of those things. And I think also it's everything in moderation, right? And I'm a firm believer that you can take these things, but our bodies aren't meant to be overwhelmed with them. So, are there options in the market that are clean, that are free from, that are convenient, and that you're able to introduce into your family's daily diet? I think just another note, which I found fascinating, is they're predicting by 2050 in the US, 1 in 3 adults will be diabetic. And I
oh
just look
no.
there. I mean, that is a target or a market that is fearful of food, right? They imagine every day going in and looking at all these options on the shelf and just not knowing if it's going to spike your sugar and what that the implications of that are. And more are in the child category too, who are pre-diabetic and who go to these parties and there are no solutions for them. So we're really passionate about being able to bring to market um, uh, just food and nutrition that is better for people, better for the planet, and a lot more conscious around what goes into our bodies. And yeah, I hope it's going to move the dial. As I said, in South Africa, it's still quite a niche market, but we are looking at how we actually provide solutions that are accessible across our target markets.
This is so interesting because, again, from my personal experience, my son, this it was this year in January. Literally,
Mm.
there was a Friday, and normally, like Friday is the day where you can, loosen up and then eat pizza and pasta and get some chocolate, a glass of wine, or chips. So I bought chips
Yes,
for him, and he literally ate the entire package in
yes,
during the evening. And on
yes.
Saturday morning he was puking. It was like really bad. I took him to the
Mm.
hospital and his sugar was really
Mm.
high. And I
Mm.
spoke with the doctor, and definitely she said, avoid any sugars and
Yes.
everything what you mentioned, right? And pastas and
Yeah.
breads and etc. And we
Yeah.
literally stopped buying. Why stopped buying anything that
Yes.
had sugar in that? And I stopped
Yeah.
eating that. Not that I
Yeah.
was like very much into this,
Yes.
but what I noticed with my own attention of span and the
Mm.
clarity of thinking, that
Mm.
has changed like
Mm.
really a
Mm.
lot.
Mm.
I am faster to step into any kind of situation and like really see what is happening, really feel is that aligned with me or not, like instantly.
Yes. Yes.
I have attention span that is far longer than 3 hours or
Mm.
something throughout the day, and
Mm.
overall I feel lighter, more happier, more fulfilled,
Mm.
and I don't
Mm.
have this like before I was eating, like when I ate, right, like cookies and pastas and
Yes.
etc. Sometimes during the day I was being feeling that
Yes.
something is dragging me down, right? And now it's like
Yes.
more, I'm like, feeling that my
It's
energy is so much lighter.
Yeah. And I think I mean, that's what we've been trying to get people back to basics, really. So I think as women too, we are quite intuitive. And so we always say, trust your gut more. But it's difficult to trust your gut when it's actually not at functioning its best. So once you get rid of all these processed foods and all the sugars and all the refined carbs, you are able to just lean into that gut and see things that you wouldn't have been able to see before, or the connections, or just intrinsically know what's more aligned or not to you. So, yeah, it's wonderful to hear your testimonial around it, because that's definitely what we're seeing. In the people that use our products. And I think that's what's been so rewarding for us too, is to just really understand people's journeys. There are a lot of professional athletes who consume our products. And in the past, they would consume really high caffeine, high sugar gels just to get them over the finish line. And what they were underestimating is that their body is not a short term place to live, right? It's long term. You need to steward it and just look after it. And so you will see them now. Definitely, there's this move and a shift to more long term sustainable nutrition, and less of that short term silver bullet get me across the line, which has been really rewarding to be part of.
Lara, I have a question about the future. Knowing that you've been for quite long now in this journey and you see the food system, as this pioneer, how would
Hmm.
you want, within 10 years from now, how would you want to see the entire food supply chain or the system, redesigned, redefined, so that
Yeah.
is literally fulfilling the purpose
Yeah.
and giving benefits for us as humans, for the planet, and
Yes.
longevity, and etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's quite a big question. I think for us, it's just the realization that the ingredients we use come from soil, right? That needs to have been cared for. It needs to have been not filled with toxins. And so I think it's even going back to that point to say, how are our crops and our produce grown? How are farmers taking care of that? I mean, ideally, and this is not, it's not realistic for Africa, but organic farming practices where you don't use chemicals are obviously the best way to go. But regenerative farming practices where we actually are pumping nutrition back into the soils, And we then have foods and ingredients that are coming from there that are just so much more rich in nutrition. I keep on saying, well, we're seeing a shift too in the generational shift where people are less inclined to use supplements. They want to actually get all their nutrition from food. But the reality at the moment with our depleted soils and all the toxins that go onto our crops is we actually are having to supplement. So, I mean, if I had a magic wand, I would want smaller scale farmers to be able to feed into our food chain who have really taken care of their produce, and also shorter just routes to market. So we're not sending all our produce offshore. And again, that was part of our purpose. When you realize in South Africa, 20 to 50% of post harvest produce goes to waste. How can we add value to that onshore and get it into the market where people have food? We have a massive dearth of children who are malnourished. I mean, we don't have shortage of food. It's about the efficient and effective way of getting the food to the right people. So, I mean, in terms of just looking after the ingredient source, the soil, how we get our ingredients, keeping that food chain shorter, so adding value onshore, and then just getting it to the right people at the right place at the right price point, and then making it a more efficient access to market process for me is win-win. I'm also very much for a shared value type model. So we don't actually just manufacture for ourselves. We manufacture for a range of brands, a lot of them small entrepreneurs who've just had a dream, which I'm so passionate too, about how do we lift people with ourselves. We've learned so much in the industry. How do we make it easier for others to join? And what I've realized too is that so many people would say, no, but you then incubate in your own competition. And I really see that as you lift other people, there's more awareness around the category, there's more investment going into the category. And I'm very much for collaboration over competition in the space. So, yeah, that's in a not real nutshell, but what I would envisage it looking like into the future.
I love that you are, so brave and melting the boundaries between your own ego, and protecting your own kind of company, and actually, yeah, being open-minded and
Yeah.
getting people in who need the same, who share the same purpose. It's
Yeah.
this is why you're here, right, Lara? And
Yeah, Shen, thank you.
speaking about speaking about some more vulnerable things
Hmm,
of us as being leaders of our companies, and just as simple humans, um, have you ever noticed that we as humanity, and maybe even you as a person, you are aware of certain truths, but at some point during the day, or during even months and years, we choose to ignore that truth due to many
hmm,
different reasons.
hmm, hmm,
And the question would be, Lara, what truth do you think we ignore as humanity today?
hmm, hmm. Wow. That's quite a big question too, but really good to think about. Um, I think for me, yeah, in the space, I think there are a variety of truths. And I feel like who we are as a business and as what we do, we've been a bit counter narrative. So, a big truth for me, I think, is just being curious, asking questions, not feeling that you have the right answer all the time. So being open to questioning, and because I do believe there are different truths for different people at different times. And we can only learn and grow if we are able to question and remain curious. So that for me is quite a big thing. I do feel like it's hard in this day and age to know what is truth, right? Because there is just so much out there that has been either weaponized or information used to just push a a certain viewpoint or agenda. Um, and I think that comes back to our truth too, is a lot of it you can see through if you are aligned with your gut, with your intuition, where you can actually start then seeing the wood for the trees a little bit better. Um, I also, and I think being in the nutrition space too, there's been so much around what's good for you in the past that we now are seeing completely turned on its head. So the fact that sugar wasn't demonized, it was fat in the decades gone by. And now we're actually realizing that sugar is a root cause of a lot of things. And actually, healthy fats aren't that bad. So truth for me is to never be too arrogant around what you believe, because the science in my mind is never settled. I feel like the more you question, the more you discover, the more you can learn and grow and unpack. And I mean, that's part of why we do what we do, is to learn and to grow and to push boundaries. I don't like the idea of ever becoming too complacent. So yeah, that would be one of them.
Mhm.
And also just links into disease. So for me, it's not even now that I believe nutrition is the only driver of disease. What I'm realizing more and more is how much of it is in your head too. And I know we've spoken about gut brain connection, but when you can't put food on your plate and you've stressed financially, you just can't be in a good, healthy space. So I've been reading a book called When the Body Says No, and just around how much of our chronic stress and what sits in our brain is a direct result of buildups of stress, which is then leading to all types of diseases, from autoimmune diseases to cancers to blood pressure. So yeah, I mean, that's for me, and it doesn't sound like a truth, right? But I think for me, it's around be curious about what the truth
Mhm.
is and never stop questioning. I think would be what I would
Oh,
grab hold of.
you layered it so beautifully from multiple perspectives, and yeah, I will take the advice of being curious and
Mm.
finding and kind of, yeah, finding and then losing and then fighting again, probably, truth
Yes,
after truth, as long as it
yes,
is for that moment, right, aligned with the where I stand
yes.
in my life, and
Mm.
kind of let that go as soon as
Mm.
it feels natural, that a new
Yeah.
question is arising, right? And
Yeah. Well,
Lara,
someone once, sorry, someone just once said, hold your convictions loosely. And I think that's what it is. Like, be sure on certain things, do your research, have an opinion, but don't be so tied up on it. I found that the times that I've been so sure about something are usually the times that I'm most wrong about it.
and this is one of the reasons why we decided to do the world record, because we thought, we just can't, life is too short to be hooked to your own
Yes,
bias,
yes,
and who knows how far more we can evolve and amplify the impact and help humanity and
yeah.
ourselves once we open up for
Mm.
new adventures, new rituals in
Yes.
business to be applied. I have a couple of questions more, Lara. Since you worked in the bank, you probably
Mm.
most likely will, it just comes naturally to me. You probably could understand this, right? So it's a top down, bottom up with,
Yes.
and etc. And with the CEO world record, we are aiming to question ourselves: what does it take the company to lead beyond hierarchy, to weave the impact, like truly weave that biggest audacious impact into the living system,
Mm.
and not linear silo mentality. Um,
Oh, love it.
so, what your thoughts would be about that? Like, what is needed so we can move away from this
Mm.
blueprinted, old management style and thinking
Yes.
to something
Yes.
more like emerging and
Yes.
relational and
Oh,
interconnected?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, a lot of it, unfortunately, we get conditioned in our education, right? That you need to build a business and conquer your category and build this empire, right? And all the metrics. If you look at how your financial statements are set up and what you measure and how you what you use to deem to be successful, it's very a short-term, one-dimensional metric, and I think that's what we've come to realize. For example, our mantra as a business is to turn the tide on chronic disease, and I used to get really upset when you'd see other businesses model our ideas or launch into market and scale recipes that we'd originally brought out, until I began realizing that if our mantra is to turn the tide on chronic disease, it doesn't matter if we're doing it or if someone else is doing it. There's this larger a view of who you are and what you can do in the category. And so we've kind of started to think of ourselves more as like an innovation incubation space where we bring that, and it's what I'm passionate about, is more the innovation around food. And if it's a big retailer that scales the idea, I mean, kudos to them. And unfortunately, we don't benefit financially, but we benefit around our mantra, right? And we benefit around those impact metrics that are actually, in my mind, a lot more important to humanity than a one-dimensional metric at the end of the day. So that's on one dimension. So just setting a vision that's bigger than your business. I think then coming back to just the silos, I think again, we've never really set ourselves up to build this little empire of our own. It's about being collaborative. There are amazing ideas out there. What you tend to find then is these brands come to us and say, will you manufacture for us? And we're like, great. And then we're able to actually add value further down the value chain for them, from a sales, from a merchandising, and then from an advertising and new product development point of view. So there's benefit and win-win for everyone along the value chain. So yeah, it's for us very much collaboration and learning from each other. I never say we have all the answers ourselves. So we learn a lot from these brands too that we then manufacture for. But what is wonderful is we then able to influence the manufacturing and the type of product that comes to market. So it will be free from, it'll be designed according to integrative nutrition principles without the bad stuff. So yeah, that's how we find we just plant seeds in the right places.
Wonderful. Yeah, I do see that we are still choosing that one dimension, normally the bottom line, and then
Yes.
losing that biggest audacious impact and actually selling our
Mm.
souls for that.
Hmm.
And Lara, the last question, the question of the world record. So, how is the world
Yes.
better off because your company is in it?
Yeah, sure. So we've chatted about so many areas. I think for us, very much the focus on African superfoods and botanicals, the likes of the rooiboses, the moringas, the baobab, that just really do offer potent nutritional profiles, and bringing that to the world, we're hoping will just improve nutrition choices and just drive down the surge of chronic disease. So our mantra, as I mentioned, is to turn the tide on that by bringing to market products that are better for people and better for the planet. I mentioned too that we formulate them along integrative nutrition principles. So really mindful of the gut brain connection, as well as just ensuring the products are free from nonsense and just things that are added to products that jeopardize our health. And then a big part of what we do, as I mentioned, was the agri-processing space and category in South Africa especially is the industry with the largest jobs multiplier. So we're improving our communities, we hope. We're creating jobs, and we're hoping to uplift not just within agri-processing our facility, but in the farms where we source our produce locally. And then going to those farms, I think our heart really is around giving farmers access to market and keeping it local and adding value locally rather than sending all this produce offshore, and resulting in massive food waste of post harvest produce locally. 20 to 50% of post harvest produce in South Africa goes to waste. So there really is an opportunity to do more with that onshore. And then, I mean, finally, we were actually recognized by the London Stock Exchange in 2019 in their feature of companies inspiring Africa, just very much around the work we're doing to improve and hopefully transform and inspire the food chain. As I mentioned to you, we don't always scale it ourselves, but we really are passionate about innovation in the space, bringing fresh ideas to the space, all in the effort of transforming it and just making our mantra of turning the tide on chronic disease a real, tangible one. So I think that's what I could say. I don't know if you want to add.
Thank you so much, Lara. It's an amazing impact you guys are doing, and I truly believe that with the time, as always, that is needed, you not only will be impactful, but you will be as well, impacting, people not only in Africa, I believe, but all over the world as well. Lara, thank you for being with
Thank you,
us
Laura.
today.
Thank you. And thank you for this amazing platform and just your efforts and just showcasing and bringing to light what people are doing differently in the impact space. So thank you.
Thank you, Lara.